everyone, and welcome to another episode of Annie Talks, where we bring to you interesting stories about interesting people that you want to know about. I'm your host, Annie Rivera. Thank you for tuning in, and to those who have already subscribed. If you're new to the podcast, welcome, and I hope you enjoy what you hear. And if so, I personally invite you to subscribe. Annie Talks is brought to you by Luxwear Trends, affordable, luxurious timepieces for every occasion, luxury that lasts forever, and that's what sets us apart from others. Find us on Facebook and Instagram or visit luxweartrends.com. That's Luxe weartrends.com. So if you've been listening to my podcast, you may have heard a few episodes where I talked with a few women entrepreneurs and learned about the power of being your own, #bossbabe and #girlboss. The movement is real. The time is now, and more women are quitting their 9-to-5 jobs and going into business for themselves. And if you're one of them, you know the struggles, trials, and tribulations that come with the territory. We often go at it by ourselves, and we find out too late what we should have, could have, and would have done. I know in my own journey toward entrepreneurship, I felt like the lone person on a deserted island without a friend or mentor to call. Well, as luck would have it, I stumbled on a Facebook group called Women Helping Women Entrepreneurs, led by Christina Rowe. There, I found my guest on this episode, Michelle McNabb. I messaged her and we bounced ideas off one another. We brainstormed, and one day I just asked her to come on my show and talk about herself and her business. And here she is. Michelle is from the East Coast, raised in Pennsylvania, recently moved to Southern Maryland, and is in New York City frequently. She's a wife, dog mom, entrepreneur, wedding planner, bridal mentor, and corporate event marketing strategist. She enjoys making vlogs, which are videos for those not in the know, and meeting new people. Michelle's expertise is corporate event marketing. Companies sell business to business or business to consumer. However, events are people-to-people connections. Michelle works with sales and marketing teams to build relationships through event strategy to attract, convert, delight, and close through organic and event strategies. Later in this episode, Michelle has a special, exciting, and exclusive announcement, and all you listeners are hearing it first on this episode of Annie Talks, so stick around to hear that great news. So, without further ado, here now is my conversation with Michelle McNabb. On this episode, a very special guest, Michelle McNabb, who is the owner, CEO, event planner, and strategist for McNabb. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you, and I am so glad that you asked me to be on your episode.
Absolutely. Part of my show, as the name suggests, Annie Talks, it's talking with interesting people like yourself, interesting people with interesting stories to tell. And I always feel that everybody should have a platform and tell stories and something, vital and important of yourself. And I met you through a Facebook group, and it's called Women Entrepreneur?
Women Helping Women Entrepreneur.
Right, and I was very intrigued, and we'll talk a little bit about this too. But how I was intrigued was your video ability and the type of videos that you do. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But for now, why don't you tell everybody, all our listeners, a little bit about yourself and a little bit about how you became who you are today.
Great. Well, absolutely. I will jump right in. My name is Michelle McNabb. That is my married name. I am from the East Coast outside of Philadelphia and recently moved down to Southern Maryland I married my high school sweetheart in Marine. He just took a new position. So, born and raised Pennsylvania, first time move out of state. So that's been a recent transition. And I am, just rocking and rolling with my business. Small town girl. And I love traveling to the city, but I am definitely not a city person. I love doing my events and corporate and going to different places, but I am definitely a homebody. I love the East Coast. And so my background is in event planning, project management. I graduated from Penn State. Mm-hmm. And with that, I always had a passion for event planning and always wedding planning, corporate planning, found myself into a marketing role, which we'll get further into later on. But that's really kind of the root. I've always had that passion, and I was one of these where even in high school, I knew what I wanted and never changed my major. I did change schools and I did transfer up to Penn State, but never changed the major, and stuck with it and have been doing that for over a decade now.
So in total, how long have you been an entrepreneur?
I opened my business. So if we're going by business date of June 2016, okay. But I've always kind of done the freelancing, event planning, coordination, and marketing since graduation, which would have been about 9 years ago. Okay.
And then now talk about what was the aha moment that made you decide, okay, this is what I want to do and this is what I want to focus on this. What was that moment?
Well, and that's kind of twofold. So one being how I knew what industry and that I would do event planning, and the other that I wanted to do it for myself. So the whole aha moment, I think, event planning, wedding planning, I remember being in 10th grade. This is just a little backstory. I know that you like stories on your podcast. So here I was. I loved math. I love design, and I'm definitely a numbers person. I'm very logical. So I thought that I would go down the route of being an architect or internal designer of some sort. And so I was in like double honors math in 10th grade. So I was on this like high track, with all the numbers and calculations and whatnot, and thinking that I would be this architect on design. Woke up, and 10th grade, I realized that I wanted to put those skills into event planning. I'm definitely a people person, and I was on a few different committees back then of just putting parties together and organization. And I realized, as much as I like the numbers and logistics, I can actually tie that into budgeting and event coordination because that's more my style. Right. So it was definitely in 10th grade that I knew. I don't know how. I just remember knowing that I would be taking my skill sets into event planning. As far as working for myself, being an entrepreneur, I think that just it's in the family. My dad's an entrepreneur. I knew by my 30th birthday, which is next month, actually.
Oh, yay.
That was my goal, to leave corporate America. And I did it a little early, which I'm glad that I did, because it does take a few years to kind of get up and going, really find your niche, get your clients. And my aha moment in corporate was when I felt like I hit my first glass ceiling. I was 24, and I was in this marketing role and working alongside other people in very similar positions, that I just kind of hit my first glass ceiling, that was where I was going to be. People twice my age had the same position because that's just the role, being a marketing manager for that division. And so I kind of looked myself in the mirror and said, okay, corporate America, this is what it has to offer me. And so not that would be the end all be all glass ceiling or opportunity. It was just kind of that aha moment. What do I need to do to take the steps? That's when I started coming out with my exit plan. And when I was 27 was when I had everything ready to go and went out on my own.
Okay.
So those were the two aha moments as far as when I found my passion, and then when I knew that I was going to take my passion to the next level for entrepreneurship.
Now, you talked a little bit about the nature of your business. Now, tell a little bit more about what you do with your business, or the nature of your business.
Okay, yeah, wonderful. So the company is McNabb, and the nature of this part of the business is corporate event strategy. So the best way that I can explain this, it has a lot to do with event planning, event networking, and event marketing strategy, rather than only coordination. So when I was in corporate, we would go to industry trade shows and work alongside with whoever's putting on the coordination of the trade show. So my role and who I work alongside with are these companies that use event strategy, event marketing in their entire marketing plan. So I'm not claiming to be a whole marketing guru. I'm not going to put a whole marketing plan. What I'm going to help and do is work with the clients that are sponsoring these events and attending these trade shows, and not just attending or not just having a booth. I'm working with these companies that are sponsoring and want to get their appearance and their connections to the next level. And so that requires a lot of the coordination if you're sponsoring these events. You know, your logo is everywhere. You have to work alongside with the coordinators. Maybe you're sponsoring a reception. Maybe you're speaking at the event. Maybe you're doing a book launch. So there's a lot of the coordination that goes along with it. Right. And then the strategy, you want to make sure that we have a pre-strategy, an on-site strategy, which is definitely some logistics, but also, how are we going to meet people? And then the post-event strategy is really important. And that's where a lot of these corporate companies, they go to these events, but then they lack the follow-up. So now you just have a fishbowl of business cards with no plan. And then they wonder why they didn't see any profit or any sort of benefit from these events. So working with those companies is really my niche. Not so much coordinating the actual event and not being on the committee to coordinate those events. I'm working alongside with whoever is the coordinator. If that kind of sets me apart, because it plays in a lot into marketing and tying in with the sales and your process flow and the reason why you're in front of these people and who you're meeting at these events.
Right. So you did a lot of the pre, during, and post marketing, basically.
Yes, and it's working alongside with your team. Yeah. So I'm not part of your team. Sometimes clients will have me get maybe a business card, but it's still my information, and I'm working alongside with whoever is also representing your team. And a lot of times at these events, it's a lot easier for me to brag about my client than for them to get in front and brag about themselves. So it's kind of like a glorified wing woman, and introducing them and really scoping out who their ideal people at these events, who we want to introduce them to on site.
Yeah. Got it. So now, what is the inspiration? We talked about the inspiration behind your business. So now you have something new. You're launching something new, and I'm really excited for everybody to learn about this. And I think this is the first you're talking about it. But talk about the new division, the other passion that you have. I'm really excited to hear this side.
I am really excited, and I will tell you that you are the first one that I'm making an official public announcement that I am rebranding a new part of my company. So as we mentioned, we have EmeneeMarketingNEvents. That's very corporate. That's very business to business. My passion and my background still is the wedding planning. And that's a completely different market. And so what I've done is created another division of M&E. And it's M&E Weddings, Wine, and DIY.
Yay!
And I had a pre-launch this spring and have connected with several hundred brides and wedding vendors around the country, and have been in front of a couple really big influencers on in the industry to launch Weddings, Wine, and DIY. And what I'm doing is the main focus, I'm launching DIY Bridal Academy.
Okay.
And that is something that I'm really excited for. I've been working for quite some time. And instead of working the corporate and the events, I'm going back to my roots, and I have not stopped wedding planning or coordination. So with my move, like I mentioned, I moved out of state this spring, that I had to take my company and say, okay, if I want to stay in the wedding industry as a planner, as a coordination, as a planner or a coordinator, a huge part of what's going to set you apart is who you know in your network. And so when I moved away out of my network of 10 years, I kind of said, well, how can I stay in the wedding industry? And that's when I came up with the Do-It-Yourself Bridal Academy. And what's really neat about this is it's working with brides that don't necessarily need a wedding planner. They know they want to plan their own wedding. They just don't know what to do. They need a little more guidance. It's more than just going to the knot or a wedding wire and getting a checklist. It's how do you get through that checklist? When do you do the checklist? And what tools and resources can I use? And so I'm able to actually offer exclusive wedding planning tools that these softwares, they only sell them to planners. They're not going out releasing these resources to brides directly. And so I'm able to extend those services to these brides at a very reasonable cost. And so I'm really excited for that launch. I have a community that I'm growing, and then the actual course we're looking to launch in the fall.
Awesome. So you talked a little bit about the scope of what this new business is going to look like, but what can clients expect from you, and how do you differentiate yourself from others in the industry? Because there's a lot of wedding planners. I mean, there's something unique and different about the M&E Weddings, Wine, and DIY. So tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about like what can clients expect, and how do you take them to the next level?
Okay, yeah. So let's talk really about the weddings, wine, and DIY side in this question. Wedding planning, wedding coordination, there are so many out there, and this is really meant to collaborate with a lot of those planners. It's not a competition with them. I actually want to collaborate, work alongside with them, introduce them to the community.
Okay.
So that's number one. Is as far as that's one thing that sets me apart is working alongside with these other planners, other wedding professionals. As far as what they can expect is it's actually completely new in the industry. So it's something that people are not familiar with. Mm-hmm. They're used to being quoted from wedding planners, a couple $1,000s to plan their wedding or to be a coordinator. And so what I explain to people is wedding planning is actually the process. It's everybody needs a venue, some food, their guest list, no matter your individual, no matter what your wedding looks like. The coordination is where all the logistics and the customization comes into play, whereas wedding planning, if you're doing it yourself, you just need that guidance and you need the right tools and how to use those tools and what to look out for and what questions to ask, and having a seasoned professional right alongside you doing that, but you're still doing the work. So I relate it to hiring a virtual personal trainer or having like an app on your phone to help you through the workouts rather than paying a personal trainer at the gym at premium cost. And so I can do that. It does not matter if I have 5 brides in a month or 100,000 brides in a month, because the course is taking them through. And then there is at least some personalization, because I run the community. I get live with my brides. I'm on these videos. They talk to me personally. Rather than coordination is one-to-one. Mm-hmm. And that's really what you're paying for, is the time of these coordinators. So it's definitely different than what people have seen. I've talked to DJs, photographers, owners of these softwares, and they are really excited to kind of see that that's where the industry may be going. So I know I'm not the only one that will come out with this idea. And I think what's going to separate any bridal mentor in the future is who you are. And that's why I'm not super concerned of, just like there's other wedding planners, I think in the future where the industry is going, that there absolutely will be these bridal mentors.
I love that concept of equating it to a personal trainer, because you're right. I mean, you could give them, basically all the sets and the reps and, the exercise movements, and then they are literally the ones doing the work. And that's a great model for this part of your division, or this new part of your business. So I love that you gave that explanation. And I think it's, you have the model, the business model, I think is just going to take off. I think it's new, right? It's brand new kind of in the industry, and you're kind of on the pioneering side of it. So I think that's really awesome. I love that concept. If I were a bride, I'd probably be like, one of those, if I were a bride, I'd be like, Michelle, help me. So
yeah. And what's the other thing is, I'm not going to be, for the bride that needs that coordinator, mm-hmm. side by side. That's why I'm connecting with these coordinators, because sometimes a bride, they don't know yet if they want a coordinator or day of coordinator, but there are a lot out there that are relying on a venue manager or a catering director for all the day of, but they don't realize until they get closer, they're not coordinating with your DJ and with your photographer and the florist. They're really there on site or in charge of the staffing ahead of time. And so they may be there the day of, but coordination comes down to two things. It's who needs to be where and when, and what needs to be where and how, and who's responsible for making sure all of those things happen. And so if a bride does want all that hand-holding and the coordination, that's separate. And I do still do coordination. That's fine. That's not what this program's for. This is targeted for the do-it-yourself bride, for the bride that is using maybe family or venue managers, or not hiring a day of coordinator. Maybe they don't need a lot of the setup, and they just want to make sure that they're not missing anything and have that peace of mind that they don't do this every day. I hope they do it one and only one time. And I do it time and time again. It's why you hire a real estate agent to help you sell or buy your home. Yeah. They do it over and over again. And hopefully you're not in the process of reading all the contracts and know what the process is and what to ask for and how to negotiate. We just sold our house, and my real estate agent negotiated that the other agent pitched in $1,000 towards seller's assist through her commission. Yeah. If we try to sell it on our own, those sort of things don't happen. That's why you hire people to help represent and get you through. Yeah. And so I'm really, really excited. It's definitely a different target. It's a lot of the millennial brides. I'm a mid-millennial, as I say. So I can relate to, and I really feel that there are wedding planners and wedding coordinators for the right bride and for different types of weddings out there. And my target are these type of brides that I resonate with, because I was one myself.
Awesome. So now let's talk a little bit about some of the struggles of an entrepreneur. Talk about some maybe challenges that you experienced. What's one challenge? Maybe you don't have to be so specific, but you could just talk about maybe, something that could help an entrepreneur, young entrepreneur, female entrepreneur, any entrepreneur starting off so they can kind of understand, they're not the only ones going through this. What are some of the things that you struggled with that you maybe can kind of help the next entrepreneurs get through?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I was actually just on another podcast. It's Successfully Screwed, and it touches really on this. It's an awesome podcast. They bring in entrepreneurs to learn from other entrepreneurs. So right. I just did a segment on this, but I'm going to relate it to something that's I guess very fresh in my mind. So I'll take this bridal academy, and what I would do is I had the concept and I would write it out and how I wanted to do it and exactly what I wanted and how it's going to be planned out. I am a planner after all. Mm-hmm. And what I noticed happening was I never launched it. It wouldn't launch. Oh. And so here I am. And so one of my skill sets is being a planner, and I think everything out. And I'm so, okay, on Mondays we're going to do this. And, this is what I need to have done before I can officially launch. But I need this before I can launch. And what has happened is it's 2 years later. And it's okay.
That's a long plan.
Yeah. It's because of course you have other things going on. You have your clients to take care of, and this is kind of my own baby. And so my advice and what I'm learning to do is I'm not a perfectionist, believe it or not, but that sometimes you have to give yourself a plan and just go to action, which I do for my clients.
Right.
But this was like, well, I've never done this one before. I've done events. I've done weddings. If it's something that I've done over and over, I do it. I know how to do it. Yeah. If it's something that's new, then I kind of get myself in this whirlwind of, okay, well, how is it going to launch perfectly? Well, guess what? It's like having a baby, and I don't have a baby yet. There's never no right time. Yeah. There's books and books and books that you can read, and videos and blogs that you can read about becoming a parent. But right. I hear it all the time. Until that happens, until you're put in the position, you're going to have to tweak things anyway, and you're going to have to take your concept and take every part of your value, and as long as your core values, so just like a parent or a business owner, if you stick to the core values and what the mission and what I want out of this, then now I'm confident that I can go ahead and launch it, knowing that it's going to have to change. So I've kind of accepted what I call I'm in permanent beta, which is always improving, always developing. And so I'm in permanent beta is what I've accepted. And now I need to launch it. And that goes with other parts of my business. Because if it's for a client or another project I'm hired for, it's not a problem. But when you're so close to it, sometimes it becomes a little more difficult.
Well, I mean, I think that says it's a testament to your work ethic, and it's a testament to you that you put your clients first, and the idea of meeting their needs, exceeding their needs, and then putting yourself, second. It says it's a great testament as to the kind of person that you are. So,
thank you.
Tap yourself on the back and know that this is your time. This is your time now to launch your project and to to fulfill that passion. So, awesome.
Yeah. What's neat about the timing, like I mentioned a few moments ago, is my goal was to become an entrepreneur by my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
And here I am. I've been an entrepreneur. I've been doing that and working. But my goal now is to launch this bridal academy, which was my original idea, my original concept, by my 30th birthday, August 19th.
That's awesome. And you're doing it. You're meeting your own goals. So
I'm doing it.
That's awesome. Way to be a role model and way to walk the walk and talk the talk, right?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I hope you're enjoying this podcast episode. We'll be right back after this short message from one of our sponsors. Comfitherm Thermal Wraps are designed to help relieve the pain and swelling in and around the jaw, especially after wisdom teeth extractions. For more information, visit comfitherm.com. That's comfitherm.com.
So now on the other side of the coin, talk a little bit about maybe some of your most memorable moments or what's your greatest achievement so far?
Oh, good one. I would say we'll go to my current clients, my current projects with the corporate that I'm looking at. I would say once I really started to brand myself and start networking and really owning in on what I do and my skill set, that's really where I recognize that there is a need and that people will hire for what I can offer them, not other people's services. So there's one point in time, especially starting out, what I would do would partner up with other designers, content writers, and I would help companies that were in need of those services. Mm-hmm. And what was happening was then I'm project managing other people's services and other needs, not really delivering. And so I guess one of my greatest achievement is more so once I realized that my skill set and what I do best, which is the networking and event strategy, and once I came up with that brand, that's really when things started to take off and I landed my larger clients. That's where I have the opportunities to start traveling. I'm going to Chicago next week. I go up to New York several times, every quarter. I'm going to New Orleans in October. So
Wow.
Once I really took ownership of my own personal brand, that was probably my greatest achievement, that I didn't have to rely on other people's skill sets and brand them.
That's so awesome. What a great achievement. And I commend you and congratulations on your success. And it's going upward from here. So just know that you're doing the right thing and you're setting an example to all the, newbie entrepreneurs, including myself. So just keep doing you and you'll get to your next goal. And you've already achieved that first goal and now you're, striving for the next. So keep doing it. And I think it's a great testament to you. And it's definitely, something that all young entrepreneurs can definitely pattern themselves after. So now we alluded a little bit earlier about how I first met you virtually. So, and we talked a bit about the kind of videos that we were doing. So talk about that. I think that's the fun side of Michelle that everybody should know about. So you talk a little bit about that.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So I have a story for you. I know that you
I love
stories.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so excited to be here with you today. So my videos, I used to be a very shy person. And people won't believe me. They hate when I say that. I'm telling you, I couldn't even ask for ketchup at McDonald's as a kid. And so anyway, it's taken me many, many years. And again, high school was a game changer for me and started really owning in who I am. So these videos are the best way that I know how to express myself. I'm not a writer. I'm a horrible, I can just stare at a screen and it takes me forever to get my thoughts out on paper. Ironically, I journal, which is weird because I'm not a writer, but journaling is more technical. It's more like what I do and my goals and everything. So these videos, what I found is how I express myself. In high school, I was that girl that had a video camera. I saved up, not for a smartphone, but I bought myself a video camera. That was before smartphones existed, right. And cameras or anything. And it was that important to me to get a video camera. And so what I've been able to do is express who I am best through these videos. Mm-hmm. And so if you follow me on Instagram, it's it's my initials, so EmeneeM819. And you will definitely get the true part of Michelle. I post videos on there and then also my personal Facebook. And it's who I am. I believe every business owner, there's a person behind it. Mm-hmm. Even with my clients that are running, big corporations, we're still people. When I meet these people at events, I don't care if you're business to business or if you're business to consumer, we're people to people connections. And so these videos that I do, it's just who I am. And I think that it opens opens that authenticity for people to see like who I am and why I do what I do.
Right.
My mom even mentioned, this is where my story was going. My mom one day was like, Michelle, do you think that you're losing out on potential business or potential brides because of these videos? I said, absolutely not, because I'm actually screening out the people that I won't work well with. So I used to, still sometimes I'm like, when I first meet people, I'm like, oh my gosh, they're going to find me so obnoxious, or, you know, maybe it's too much energy. And yet those are the people that I probably wouldn't work very well with, especially for a wedding. You want to work with someone that you like, and that you get along with, and that encourages you or inspires you or makes you feel better when you're stressed, and not makes you more stressed. Yeah. And so I tell my mom that all my clients, my own clients, even my multi-million-dollar clients, they follow me on social media, on my personal page, not just my business page, and I encourage that. So, and I encourage that for everyone, for every entrepreneur out there. You know, be you. Authenticity is what people are really buying into.
So now there's a unique method to the way in which you do your videos. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, are you talking about double time jams?
Yeah.
Those ones? So that is a segment, not all of my videos, but yeah, I am a very high pace, go, go, go person. So I have a segment, I call it double time jams. I'm trying to be good. I just realized I was speaking pretty quick for a podcast right now. I do that when I get excited. And so what I do is when I take my videos, a lot of them I'll actually speed it up a little bit and put captions. And it even emphasizes more that personality. And if I can get my message out in twice as fast. And it's just a way to express who I am. So those are hashtag double time jams. There's a lot in there. Sometimes I just sing in the car with my dash cam. Sometimes it's my dog. Sometimes it's my thoughts or a story of the day. And it's, you know what's interesting? A lot of women like them, and a lot of men, and like the guys that follow me, they don't understand it, which I find really funny. And I did some research, and women, they can pick up on quick verbiage and even a higher pitch than the men. I mean, my husband hates them. Like he thinks that they're so ridiculous. And yet my women followers, they think it's hysterical and they love it. And it's just so interesting how the different audiences resonate with them. So again, not all my videos are the double time jams, but a lot of them.
I love them all. I think it just show your personality. You have a lot of, it just shows kind of your experience and your creativity that you can bring to the table. So I like that you said that this is how you weed out, your potential, clients or customers, because, if they're willing to work with you on that creative level, then that it's going to be a good, collaboration, a good relationship. So I think you should just keep doing it. That's how I was intrigued. I'm like, oh my God, I love her video. So awesome.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah. So a couple more things. What would you tell your 21-year-old self? What would you tell your young self? What do you know now that you could share with her then, and what would you tell her to do differently?
It's so funny that you mentioned and that you picked that age 21, because that was the age that I started corporate America. And I would have just had my 8th anniversary there. And story time, I messaged the one other person that's still at that company that I started with that same day, and I wished him a happy work anniversary. Aww. He's still there. He's a manager and doing very, very well there, which is great. And I was sharing with him that I was 21 when I started there. And here we are. I turned 30 next year. And he's like, oh my gosh, we're so old. He's now, father of 2, and I don't have children just yet. So it's funny that you picked that age, 21. Okay.
Milestone age. So, things come to fruition at 21, what you wanted to do, when you were in high school, and you're just now getting, at 21, you're just kind of getting your foot in the door in the area, in the direction you want to go. So what would you have, what could you tell yourself or then what you know now? I would say that, one, things are going to be just fine. That, follow exactly where, where we want to go. And we, as in me and my younger self. I would say, this one's a tough one because there's so much. I wish that I got into consistency and personal development earlier. So now I'm pretty consistent, and some people work out every single day. I try, but I do personal development and I continue to learn. And had I done that earlier and known some of the things that I've picked up just from the last 2 years by the mentors and different personal development and ways of thinking. If I knew that even at 21, not that I would have left corporate any earlier. I think that I left at a good time, but it's just some of these things that you don't pick up on, at college or education, or it's more finding what works for me. And I would say, just being consistent with some of those things at an earlier age. Yeah. I actually read an article, or maybe it was a video, and I'm not a parent yet, but I really think that this is a neat concept. And the idea is the parents actually don't pay their children allowance based on their chores. They base it off of what they do is they pick a personal development book, and then they do a report on it. And their theory behind that is, well, when you get older, nobody's going to reward you for doing chores and your responsibilities. Yeah. That's just being a responsible adult and not being entitled that you get paid or things come your way when you take out the trash. But you're going to be rewarded on your personal development. And who you are. And so I think that that's a really awesome concept. And that's going over and beyond. So again, not that I'm a parent or that is wrong. Don't get me wrong if you're a parent on here listening, that if you're paying your children's allowance based on chores, that's fine. But I thought that was a really neat concept. And I think that I'll definitely take that into parenthood. And when I mentor, I do a lot of mentorship. I have an intern right now. And I really encourage those sort of personal developments with these interns that I work with. Mm-hmm. So we have 2 more questions. What parting words can you give young entrepreneurs, maybe even young wedding planners or young business planners? What piece of advice can you give them? Oh, gosh. For young people out there, stick with it. But with that, it's okay to tweak things. So, you need patience and continue to learn from other people. And so even if you have an idea and it's not working the first time, do it again, but change it a little differently and keep going at it, because all the successful people that you see, they're still learning. And the day that you stop learning and the day that you stop caring is the day that you're doomed. So, continue to go to the next level. But remember what's important to you. And I'll bring this. I have my best friend, and she's now a mom, and she's one of my designers that I use. And, stick to what's important to you. So she wants to work 15 hours a week, and she's okay with the compensation she's making. She wants to be a mom, and those are her priorities. Mm-hmm. And she's not trying to go out there, making an agency and make, hundreds of thousands of dollars or anything. And she's happy. And so define your own happiness and define your own success. That was one reason why I left my one recent position,
Right.
was we did not see eye to eye of what success is, where, of course, money and, wealth is great, but that's not how I define my true success. And so when I didn't see eye to eye with, and that goes for a client or a previous manager, that really resonates hard with me is, they can't define my success, and don't let anybody else define that for you, or say, oh, I can give you this great opportunity and make all this money, or all this, maybe it's flexibility or whatever it may be. You need to understand your own success so that you know how you need to get there.
Awesome. Good advice. Thank you for sharing that. So now, where can we follow you? Can you shout out your social media to us?
Yes. Okay. So for the weddings, wine, and DIY, that's pretty easy. It's Instagram, Pinterest, and Facebook. And you can search weddings, wine, DIY.
Okay.
For my personal, if you want to check out some of those videos that we were talking about and just who I am, Michelle McNabb on Facebook. And on Instagram, I'll spell it out. So it's M.N.M819. So it's my initials, MNM819, but it has those 2 dots in there. So again, I do have a personal brand and the weddings brand. I find it interesting. I think it's definitely my personal brand. And some people, they have this struggle of entrepreneurs. Well, do I keep my self brand and my business brand together, or do I separate it? And I went through that also. And I did decide to create separate pages or the groups. But again, I do allow people to follow me regardless. And then I do put in the different things in there, but because I have 2 different distinct audiences, I really do need to separate, like on Instagram or Facebook. So that's always a common question that people ask.
Right.
Why I have 2.
Awesome. We'll find you either way. So I highly recommend everybody to follow Michelle. So I'll have all her information in the show notes below. Michelle, thank you so much for being on the show. I truly appreciate it. You've shared a lot of your own insight and, a lot of the advice, even for myself and for others out there that I know that who've always wanted to kind of dive in feet first and don't know how to do that yet and what that looks like. So your insight into how you got started is helping somebody. It's 5:00 somewhere, right? So,
right.
And someone's out there is going to hear this and is going to be intrigued, just like I was, and be indebted to just your advice. So, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. Yeah.
Of course.
Well, that's it, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Annie Talks and learning about Michelle McNabb. The one takeaway from this discussion that I recommend to each of you is to set goals for yourself and set them early. As you've heard, Michelle had a vision in mind. She knew where she wanted to be by the age of 30, and having met that goal a few years ahead of that target, she now set a new goal for herself. So the moral of the story is set one goal at a time. Once you've achieved it, keep going. I love that. Don't forget to follow Michelle on social media and check out her website. I will have all that information in the show notes below. Now, before we sign off, if you aren't already subscribed to my podcast, I invite you to hit subscribe and be notified anytime we upload a new episode. If you are already subscribed, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. If you could please rate and review my podcast, please leave a comment or 2. It would really help me out, and it would also help others to find this podcast. You can also follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. I will have the link to all my social media below in the show notes too. And lastly, if you enjoy this podcast, please consider contributing to my Patreon page. Your contributions will help to further the vision and mission of Annie Talks so that we could produce more episodes like this one and many other types of episodes and topics. The Patreon page will also be included in the show notes below. Thank you all again for tuning in and keep listening to Annie Talks.
Hello everyone, it's Michelle McNabb with McNabb Marketing and Events, and you are listening to Annie Talks.